football fans deserve to be ashamed about the state of FIFA, and they have every right, really, to want some resolution to this corruption scandal. After all, since December 2010, when the World Cup was awarded to Qatar and Russia, it's been wave upon wave of scandal, and Sepp Blatter maintains his position at the top of FIFA when others beneath him are either corrupt or taken away from the game by the Ethics Committee.
Blatter, who has not been indicted, is expected to be re-elected Friday to a fifth term as head of FIFA. FIFA spokesperson Walter Di Gregorio says the next two World Cup venues will not change, even though 10 of the FIFA members who voted in favor are being investigated.
The World Cup 2018 and 2022 will be played in Russia and in Qatar.
In New York, U.S. Attorney General Lynch told an Overflow news conference that the investigation into FIFA, its marketing associates, and the banks is far from over.
They were expected to uphold the rules that keep soccer honest and to protect the integrity of the game. Instead, they corrupted the business of worldwide soccer to serve their interests and to enrich themselves. They used the banking and the wire facilities of the U.S. to distribute their bribe payments, and they planned to profit from their scheme in large part through promotional efforts directed at the growing U.S. market for soccer.
So far, a total of 14 people have been arrested in Switzerland and the United States. Richard Weber, chief of the Internal Revenue Service investigation, had a special title for FIFA's activity, calling it the World Cup of Fraud. And Weber added, the case is not about soccer, it's about corruption. Bernard Schussman, VOA News, New York.
Well, tensions are high, but the streets of Burundi's capital are calm on Thursday. The Burundian government is asking its citizens to fund June's presidential election because some foreign donors are threatening to withhold foreign aid if President Pierre Nkurunziza pushes ahead with his bid for a third term. For more on the situation in Burundi, VOA's Edward Rema joins us live now via Skype phone from Bujumbura. Eddie, first, there has been an announcement, a very significant announcement by the Catholic Church in Burundi. Can you give us some details?
Thank you so much, Vincent Makori. Yeah, it is true. The Burundi's most influential Catholic Church withdrew their support for the upcoming June elections, which is going to deal a heavy blow to the current government of President Pierre Nkurunziza, because as the way things look now, Burundi is a country in isolation.
Now, Burundi's Catholic Church withdraws, but even another significant development is that donors who are to fund the election process are saying they will not give the money. How will President Nkurunziza conduct these elections?
Yeah, many countries have so far announced that they are suspending money that they had set aside to support the electoral process here in Burundi because of the decision by the current president to run again for a third term. What is happening here in Bujumbura, what we are learning from the government is that the government is setting aside 44 billion Burundian francs to organize their own elections. But this will definitely come at a cost because they are cutting several costs from the current budget. Services like agriculture, health services are being cut so that the government can get some money to fund the election. And the other thing that we had just over the weekend was an appeal from the government, from President Pierre Nkurunziza, asking people to fund the elections, to donate money, which is something unusual here in Bujumbura. And right now, a few minutes ago, the European Union also announced that they were suspending their election observers mission in Burundi. They say that some minimal conditions need to be in place in order to contribute to a transparent, peaceful, credible, and fair process that would give confidence to the political actors and electorate. So all this pressure and isolation is really dealing a heavy blow to the ruling parties here in the day after day.
Indeed, indeed. Eddie, thank you very much. Viewers, Edward Rema reporting live via Skype phone from Bujumbura in Burundi. Now, turning to West Africa, preparations are wrapping up in Nigeria for Friday's historic inauguration of President-elect Muhammadu Buhari. In Abuja's Eagle Square, the official venue for the inauguration, flags of countries whose representatives are expected to attend fluttered in the wind. Souvenirs with images of Buhari and flags of his party, the All Progressives Party, were already being sold in anticipation of the event. 3 decades after seizing power in a military coup, Buhari became the first Nigerian to oust a sitting president through the ballot box, putting him in charge of Africa's biggest economy. The People's Democratic Party, the party of outgoing President Goodluck Jonathan, has been in charge since the end of army rule in 1999, but it has been losing popularity due to a string of corruption scandals and the rise of Boko Haram's insurgency in the northeast. Many Nigerians are optimistic that Buhari and his new government will be able to tackle the many challenges facing the country.
We are happy, so we are praying for progress this year. So by the name of God, inshallah, after this one, Nigeria will be okay. So we say change. We are praying for the change we have come to. We are praying to stay. That's our prayer.
Meanwhile, artist and curator Efe Okorare is making the most of the inauguration with an exhibition of portraits of previous Nigerian presidents. The portraits show Nigerian heads of state from 1960 to the present day.
I think basically most people will be doing portraits of Buhari because Buhari is the new president that is coming in. But this exhibition has taken us back to 1960, from Tafawa Balewa up to Goodluck and the future next in government in the next couple of days.
Mr. Buhari seized power in a 1983 coup, only to be ousted 18 months later by another general. Since then, President-elect Buhari has declared himself a convert to democracy, running and losing several elections, but always coming back for more on a ticket of cleaning up Nigeria's politics. Well, the 5th edition of the Africa Debt and Capital Markets Summit was held recently here in Washington, D.C. Organized by London-based African Bank magazine, the summit brought together top African and international stakeholders operating in the continent's financial markets. A key item discussed was the role of African and international investors in Africa's capital markets and the emergence of financial hubs in Africa. During the meetings, Nigeria's Minister of Finance addressed her country's debt.
Our borrowing strategy is very prudent, given our history. But what we will do, we have a lot more domestic borrowing, I think, than I would want. So we try to switch and have a little bit more of external, but drawing heavily on the multilaterals. So we will be going to the multilateral, meaning the bank and the African Development Bank.
Well, that was how outgoing Nigerian Minister of Finance Ngozi Okonjo now, all the way to East Africa, the Al-Shabaab militants that have long battled for control of Somalia are also recruiting thousands of young people in Kenya, leaving many families disconsolate. Mohammed Yusuf recently visited the Kenyan town of Isiolo and met with relatives of those recruited, as well as many who have helped with the recruiting.
These 3 women have met to talk about their fears and struggle to get their boys back and to keep those remaining away from Al-Shabaab recruiters. They exchange stories reluctantly at first, but then with growing confidence. Zainab Hashi listens keenly at times, but also seems distracted at other moments. She says her son left home on what was thought to be an Islamic retreat. A week later, a call came in.
He left here on the first day of this month. He was with 4 other boys. Some of the boys called. They said they were in Liboy. I asked, why didn't he call us? They said he was afraid, but he was fine. They told us the Kenyan security forces arrested them.
Halima Hassan, seen here in the middle, says her teenage brother left home and joined Al-Shabaab 8 months ago. She says before he left, he asked for money for a school trip and has not been seen since. Now she fears the worst.
Since he has joined them, there's no way he can be found. He's become a criminal who has no sympathy and kills people. Even if he's back, he'll bring that criminality here. But I will pray for God to guide him.
Ali is an Al-Shabaab recruiter. He says his job is to look for boys who are idle and to bring them to the mosque. From there, other people take over.
They told me I could help them look for boys around my age who can go for an Islamic retreat for about 4 months. They told me they wanted such youths because they sinned a lot, and God can forgive them. I heard the boys whom I took to the mosque for Islamic teaching went to Al-Shabaab, and their story ended just like that.
In late April, Kenyan security agencies published a list of 85 people involved in terror activities. One person on the list is Abdi Ibrahim Aden, a primary school teacher in Isiolo. He denies he's involved in terrorism, but admits some people on the list need to be questioned.
I believe there were some people who are genuinely supposed to be questioned because they were doing, I don't know if they are doing now, but they were doing business with Somalia in getting sugar. Sugar is under Al-Shabaab control in Somalia.
The Somali militant group's recruitment drive is still on in Kenya, much to the dismay of parents. They feel powerless against an enemy who can influence their sons and make them vanish, with no guarantee they will ever return home. Mohammed Yusuf for VOA News, Isiolo, Kenya.
Well, the latest airstrikes by the Saudi Arabia-led coalition in the Yemen capital, Sana'a, has killed dozens of pro-rebel forces. The coalition aims to cripple the Houthi insurgent group that overran parts of the country earlier this year. Reuters news agency says scores of civilians were among the casualties along the Saudi-Yemen border. Thousands have died since a regional air force coalition began an offensive against Houthi fighters in late March. Now, the growth of the Islamic State militant group in Iraq and Syria comes as the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign kicks off in the Midwest state of Iowa. As VOA's Ken Farabah reports, voters want to know how the candidates will handle recent militant gains in the Middle East.
It is one of the biggest issues on the minds of voters in Iowa, the growing threat of Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria. Iowa voter Michael Downey is especially torn by the fall of Ramadi, where U.S. soldiers battled insurgents during the Iraq War.
The people who fought over there, they paid a price for that city. They've got to be heartbroken today. There are people who are injured and have lost family members, and today they have to ask a question. Was it worth it?
It is a question Downey knows well. His son Luke is a former U.S. Marine who served several combat deployments to Afghanistan.
And it is a sacrifice because whether it's your son or daughter, they're in harm's way, the mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters, they all pay a price too.
Downey and his son Luke attended a forum with former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee.
8,300 were wounded to take it.
And former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Voters here want to know where the candidates stand on sending more ground forces back to Iraq.
You're in an area in the United States where a very high percentage of families serve, and so the sacrifice, and sometimes the ultimate sacrifice of losing your life for your country, is taken very seriously.
Democrat Jeff Danielson is an Iowa state senator from Cedar Falls. He's also a veteran of the first Gulf War and serves on several Iowa committees for veterans. Danielson is running for local re-election next year alongside presidential candidates. He says possible U.S. involvement with places like Iraq and Afghanistan tops the list of concerns voters have discussed with him.
Foreign policy is one of the reasons people vote for a president, so it's always going to be highly salient. It's probably equal to the economy and domestic issues when it comes to thinking about who you're voting for president.
You made a difference of how important the decisions are for the commander-in-chief.
Michael Downey is still thinking about who he wants to vote for, but there is one thing he's looking for in whomever he chooses: someone who can generate bipartisan cooperation.
A divided nation cannot win a war.
Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Cedar Falls, Iowa.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, what is Somalia doing to improve maternal health care? Stay with us.
Wherever you are, Voice of America is on air, reaching more than 130 million weekly, worldwide. in more than 40 languages. Online, social media and breaking news from around the world. On the go, dozens of new features on popular platforms with new apps and trending topics. Voice of America, on air, online, on the go.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Esther Gido Yuot. Lino Mudu is on assignment and we'll hear from her shortly. But first, the British aid group Save the Children ranks Somalia as the worst country for mothers. Their ranking is based on statistics for maternal health, child mortality, education and women's income. Nearly 25 years of instability has caused Somalia's health institutions to collapse. But the government and the international partners hope to soon change this narrative. Abdulaziz Bilo has more from Mogadishu.
Fadumo Abdul Qadir lost her child shortly before birth. She is among the millions of women in Somalia who remain at great risk during childbirth. In its latest report, State of World Mothers, the aid group Save the Children has ranked Somalia at the bottom among the countries surveyed. According to the United Nations Children's Agency UNICEF, maternal mortality rates for Somalia are among the highest in the world. 1 out of every 10 Somali children dies before seeing its first birthday. Somalia's Deputy Minister of Health, Osman Mohamed Abdi, says the government hopes to change the situation.
wasaaradda caafimaadka waxay dardar gelinaysaa ama ahmiyad siinaysaa in la yareeyo dhimashadaas.
Somalia is among the worst countries in the world for a mother, but the Ministry of Health, with support from international partners like the United Nations Population Fund, will work hard to ensure that help is delivered to Somali mothers at the regional, district, and village level.
It is believed that 1 out of every 12 women in Somalia dies due to pregnancy-related causes. Only 9% of pregnant women in the country have access to skilled birth attendants. The UN says the world has a massive midwife shortage and says this is particularly dangerous for countries in crisis. Recently, 23 new midwives graduated in Mogadishu at a ceremony that coincided with the International Day of the Midwife. Both the Somali government and UN agencies see this as a positive step, even though it does not come anywhere close to meeting the country's needs. These new graduates will be deployed across the country to help women during childbirth and attend to their complications before and after the delivery. Grace Kieyune is with the United Nations Population Fund.
These 23 can also only serve 2,300 women, but there are more women now needing their support than before. We don't want to get to a situation whereby we're saying it's always too late. We know very well how many women are dying right now as we sit here because of giving life.
Conflict and poverty in Somalia have forced many of the country's displaced women to give birth in makeshift camps. With limited assistance during pregnancy and birth, there are likely to be more cases of death in childbirth. But Somali authorities say they are determined to take action to improve the situation. Abdulaziz Bilo for VOA News, Mogadishu.
Well, the African Development Bank's 50th annual meetings are underway in Ivory Coast. The meetings in Abuja culminate on Friday with the election of a new bank president. It's one of the most important decisions for the institution on the continent. Africa 54's Lino Mudu is attending the gatherings, and she joins us now by phone from Abidjan. Good evening, Lino.
Hello, Vincent.
Yeah, now we know this has been going on all week. Can you give us a sense of where things are at this moment?
So officially voting started early this morning with the first round seeing the elimination of Sierra Leone. As of now, there have been a few rounds, and I can tell you that the last two candidates remaining are Chad and Nigeria. However, some sources say that things seem to be leaning toward Nigeria, but it has not been announced officially yet. So I cannot tell you that Nigeria won, but some information are leaning toward Nigeria. So as of now, we still need confirmation.
Okay, we'll wait and see. But tell us a little bit about the election process there.
So with regards to the electoral process, the Board of Governors elect the president of the African Development Bank. There are 80 members with 54 African states and 26 non-African states. Now, a candidate needs to collect at least 50.01% of the African votes and 50.01% of the non-African votes. And there are other cases where, even if these numbers are not reached, there are other ways where the process will be declared in terms of who the winner is. But as of now, we're still waiting for confirmation as to who is the final winner of this election.
Now, some people were telling me that this has been one of the most exciting election of an ADB president. Can you tell us a little bit about why this is the case?
Very exciting indeed, Vincent. 8 candidates from different regions of Africa, south, southern, north, east, west. All regions were represented almost. We also had one woman who was candidate, Christine Duarte. She was actually one of the last ones to be kicked out of the race, and she's from Cape Verde. And she did have a lot of support from people here. They were leaning toward her, the first woman, but she didn't make it to the finals. Now we have Chad and Nigeria, and from some reports, from some sources are saying it's Nigeria. So we are yet to confirm that.
We've seen a number of African presidents attending that event. Some people would wonder, is there any political kind of dimension to these elections?
Honestly, Vincent, it's such an important institution which includes so many countries. There is some political aspect to this. There is a point where heads of state have their say, pull the strings, and we have to be honest. Let's not forget the influence of heads of state and all the lobbying behind this when it comes to electing such an important representative of the #1 bank, African bank. So yes, there is some influence of heads of states in this electoral process, but the members, the governors are the ones to elect who actually will represent, will be heading and leading this bank.
Okay, Lino.
So yes.
Thank you. You'll give us the final results tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Africa 54's Lino Mudu reporting from Abidjan. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a love-struck suitor with livestock to spare makes U.S. President Barack Obama an unusual offer. We'll be right back.
Was transferred via the National Treasury to the National Department of Sports and Recreation.
Thank you so much.
اللي نص عليه القانون اللي تعرفوه اللي نظم العدالة.
Welcome back. Here's what's trending. Who says you can't put a price on love? Nairobi lawyer Felix Kiprono has his eye on someone special, President Barack Obama's daughter, Malia. And what's Kiprono's offer to win her hand? 50 cows, 70 sheep, and 30 goats. He is currently working on a letter to announce his intentions and plans to give it to the local U.S. Embassy. Kiprono claims he first became interested in Mr. Obama's oldest daughter in 2008 when she was 9 years old. Something tells us that this is an offer the president will have no problem refusing. Next up, The watchword in Shanghai is wearable. At the Consumer Electronics Show, the Cool Glass one is the talk of the town. The Google Glass lookalike can currently only be connected to mobile phones using Android systems. Users can send photos, videos to the phone and receive information via the internet. There's also a camera which takes photos and records HD video. Other highlights are wearable sports trackers, a GPS-enabled watch, and earpieces that make hands-free enjoyment of music a breeze. And finally, everything old is new again in Pakistan. Vintage cars are becoming increasingly popular in Pakistan with lovingly restored motors, some more than 100 years old, still driving on the streets of Karachi and Islamabad. The Pakistan Vintage and Classic Car Club now has over 10,000 members, making it the largest auto club in the country. The club says the trend of owning classic cars has been growing among rich Pakistanis who often take century-old vehicles to rallies and auto car shows to promote the hobby. And that's what's trending. Vincent, maybe you should buy a vintage car.
Maybe I should buy a vintage car, but how about this just coming in from the Africa Development Bank elections of the African Bank president, the Nigerian candidate apparently has been elected. Well, that concludes our show for today. Thanks for watching. Join us tomorrow again. Yeah.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words, where we teach you about words in the news.
Listen to this story about how U.S. lawmakers voted to avoid a government default.
They say it is only a temporary delay and does not fix the underlying problem of a growing fiscal deficit with a combination of taxes and spending cuts.
The word fiscal has to do with money. It refers to the budget policies of businesses and governments.
Our news story is about U.S. fiscal policy. It is about how money is raised through taxes and how the money is spent.
Now, when you hear the word fiscal, your American English will be good enough to know what this news word means.